Hello, my name is Randall Borden. I'm the attorney, and this is my legal podcast. We're happy to have here as a guest today Jacqueline Clancy. She's a certified legal nurse consultant with 21 years of experience in healthcare. And so we'll get right into it. Ms. Clancy, thank you very much for joining us. So, can you, I guess, first tell me what is a consulting legal nurse?
So basically, attorneys come to me with cases. It could be personal injury cases, nursing negligence, or medical malpractice cases. And essentially, we go through the medical records to see if there's any standards of care that are deviated from and take it from there.
So you would do, I guess, the medical malpractice, but what also would just be regular car accidents to determine like how much a case is worth, that kind of thing also?
Absolutely. Medical records, as I'm sure you know, can be quite voluminous, and nurses can go through and pick out what's pertinent to cases, create chronologies, and make sure that the injuries are comparing through what was pre-existing versus what was after the accident, which versus what was exacerbated, and help the attorney go
No.
through all of it.
So evaluate the case at the beginning. Would you also, as the case progresses, I guess, make sure that the client is maintaining their therapy or whatever, with that he's getting the right treatment, I guess, during the litigation? That would be, you would still be on board with that?
Absolutely. And auditing the compliance of the recommendations from the medical side to what the patient is actually or victim is actually executing, all relevant to injury cases.
As far as the accidents, that part I understand, but there's quite a lot in your resume that's very interesting. It says here d delay of care. So that would be when the doctor didn't recommend treatment right away and damage resulted. Is that what I'm reading there?
Yeah, it could be a scenario of that, or if you're in a more acute setting, such as a hospital, a lot of times there's a quantitative delay of care. I think about when a patient perhaps needs to have emergent surgery.
Hmm.
Maybe the physician identifies that early on, maybe they don't. Maybe
Right.
the OR is available, maybe it's not. Maybe the patient could have been served better getting transferred to another facility that has more availability. And the same goes with lab testing or radiology sorts of testing. And even that alone, there's a lot of sequence of events that, the layman may not know. So even with the radiological test, was it ordered in prompt amount of time? Was it targeted to be routine or stat? When was it executed? And then when was it actually read? And when were those finalized
Oh.
things actually relate to the physician? So even in something that seems so simple, could be quite complex in
Right.
time.
And each step along the way, whether or not they did the right thing or the bookkeepers told them to to slow it down a bit. Is that also a capacity management? Would that say for nursing homes, whether they're hiring enough people to get the job done?
So that would be more of like a staffing to census or nurse to patient ratio. So that certainly is one bucket of it. And then there's also another bucket of hospitals having actual capacity management and availability. So
Hmm.
that could mean anything from beds that they have available for admitted patients, or maybe even availability to do emergent CAT scan. Maybe one of their CAT scans is down and they only have one other. So they may need to
Wow.
put in an alternate plan to be able to deliver that emergent care that the community is depending on.
The community is the one that's supposed to standards, capacity. It's the group of hospitals are all supposed to have a certain what number of each item, and then have the patients, I guess, go to each one. And I guess again, the tendency is just to cut costs. And if one of those machines goes down, then do you have the extra capacity to meet them from there? Wow.
Right. And then also, if you know your machine's down, are you being in a reactive model of having people come in emergently and then having to turn them away and then having to deal with that? Or do you
Right.
have good policy and operation protocol where you can say, okay, this CAT scan is down. Now we're going to do X, Y, and Z to keep our risk mitigated?
It's difficult when all those decisions really sound normal up here, but then you realize you're talking about people and nuts and bolts and fenders and computer parts or whatever. It's real people that can live or die or suffer based on what happens down there. And then, well, let's see, maybe some happier stuff. You also had in your resume executive healthcare policy, and I guess that is what, treating the upper end of the corporations, or how does that work?
I think that is more relevant to my latest clinical experience, which was creating and directing an interfacility transfer center over 23 hospitals. And kind of like what we were alluding to before is, especially in healthcare, when the stakes are so high and can be fatal if wrong decisions are made,
All right.
you really want to be able to analyze different scenarios that are coming through. Is this something that we've seen before, or is this a complete gross outlier that we've never encountered before? And if we are seeing these same things and we're having negative outcomes, what are we doing to prevent these from happening in the future? So all of that
Mhm.
comes together through that lens.
And for example, COVID, something that you'd never seen before, and shutting down the world and trying to deal with that. Do you have any, I guess, opinions on that you'd like to express, or is that still out for study, or did we do the right thing? 2 weeks to flatten the curve, et cetera.
I think it's easy to be a Monday quarterback
Right.
commentator,
Yep.
but of course, there's always opportunities for improvement. And I think the biggest universal opportunity is to have a strong emergency management backbone in your health systems. And what I like to do, and what I did for my health system, is make sure that we're on a dial and we're not getting into complete and utter reactivity. That if you have a low census, maybe it's summertime and you
Mhm.
don't have too many viruses and things going on and you're accident free, you're not having a lot of traumas, you
All
can
right.
kind of turn that dial down. And then when it's flu season, which everyone was used to in a pre-COVID world around the holidays where the census is usually high, you turn that dial up. And there should always be room to turn that dial up for the unexpected, because that's how the unexpected is the definition of accidents,
All
and
right.
the unexpected is the definition of having emergency events. You know, it could be an explosion, it could be a train wreck, it could be a mass casualty, a multi-vehicular accident on a
All right.
freeway,
Mhm.
all these sorts of things. If you have a good bone and good plans, you'll be able to just turn that dial up and accommodate in a managed, organized way versus reactivity of
Right.
chaos.
My experience with COVID, of course, is, things were shut down, court systems were shut down, things like this, Zoom rose to the forefront. I think that's part of the backbone if we have another event like that, that in hindsight, how easy it seemed to transfer from hearings in court to hearings on Zoom. Maybe still have trials in person, but being able to maximize my time as an attorney, certainly, not having to drive to the courtroom and just for a 5 minute hearing. So if it happens again, I think that we'll be in a much better shape than before. And of course, a lot more things that can be done virtually, even now, moving in that direction just because of cost savings. For me, being able to spend 5 minutes at a hearing and charge the client for 5 minutes instead of an hour, to include travel time, sitting there waiting in the courtroom. What happens is you dial in and the court puts you in a queue. I'm working on other stuff. And then the screen lights up. I'm there, 5 minutes, I'm done, and I bill the client accordingly. So their clients are, I think the judges like it too, because they can bring the people in and out more efficiently and get more of their day devoted towards what their judicial decisions instead of housekeeping. That was an interesting experience. And then how many of the courtrooms have gone back to normal? How many are still in virtual? There's the whole world of electronic filing and electronic records is now catching up. I guess what you do is almost entirely electronic records, right? Everything is now scanned in, digitized, and that's what you review.
Yeah, attorneys sent it to me, the records via like some sort of PHI sort of safe way, whether it's an encrypted box or something like that. I try to stay away from any sort of paper
Right,
records at this
right.
point, and
Mhm.
it's a lot easier for all parties involved now to be able to do this sort of thing virtually. And just to your point before, with all of these different virtual opportunities now and seeing what's sticking around in which
Mhm.
states and which areas and which is going away. I think COVID really put a huge spotlight on people realizing that money is not the only currency. Time is also a very
Right.
powerful currency.
Now they're trying to balance this. They're, interaction with people in person versus, return to office versus work from home. How much is really necessary face to face? If you go to the office and you're ordered to communicate with your coworkers by Zoom, what's the point? I think you can get almost everything done. I don't do any criminal work. I mean, obviously that's a whole nother situation, but just the civil work is certainly fine. And then just communicating with experts like you, just being able to call someone up, send over the documents, take a look at this, just see, is it worth pursuing? Is there anything there? Is there any issues or not? Does it look fine? And then, send it back in a day and you get your resolution just like that. That's a real valuable component too. What do you see happening in the future, particularly AI? Is that going to replace you and me, or how is it going to be a tool or a competitor, or what do you see happening there?
I could really see AI being used more in the personal injury space, like car accidents, where those cases and the injuries go on for years and years, and there's kind of like a very long extended chronology
Right. Hmm.
regarding that. In medical malpractice, though, a lot of what I find that are like the keys to the cases are not something that you can group search a word for or have an AI pan through. A lot of
Right.
things are either missing from the medical record or pertinent to a policy. And the language in healthcare can be variant from hospital to hospital, even in the same health system, let
Mm.
alone
Mm.
from state to state, region to region, and then upon what even specialty that is being examined in that case can vary using different language. So I think there's a long time before I would feel any threat from
Right.
that in medical malpractice, but certainly it could be leveraged for attorneys with those car accidents. I think will be
Mm.
valuable for them.
And then there's always the danger that someone that wants to cut costs could tweak the AI just a little bit. In this case, always come out in favor of the cost savings or denial of coverage or minimizing the injury when it's really a major injury or something like that. At some point, people are going to have to start getting inside of the AI to determine, who's programming it and what is it really doing based on human input. So we'll see. But have you used that? I mean, have you seen it used? Is it promised in ads like I get?
I don't use it. I have my own strategy and tactical way I go about cases, and I don't utilize it in my medical malpractice cases. No, I know some people have. My number one concern at its infancy stages right now is, to your point, where's the quality? Where's the veracity? And how can you count on it? I think there's going to be some sort of parallel to actually an electronic medical record. You have a surface of it, of what's produced,
All right.
and then you can actually request an audit trail and find what lies underneath
Oh,
and what
okay.
they were and who was inputting them and things like that. So I would imagine at some point down the road, if attorneys were going to be heavily dependent on that, there would need to be some sort of veracity quality check to hold it accountable.
And then who along the way, who's putting information in? Are you
Right.
getting a regular doctor, or is it a doctor, or is it a technician that, observes something in the patient's room? Who puts it in? How much weight is given to that? The doctor sees them once a week, the technician sees them twice a day. It's got to be a way to qualify that too. And then hopefully translate into better care overall. The personal medical record and the AI spits out a personal medical plan. The hospital or the nursing home or the therapist can see that and follow it. So, I mean, again, I know they're promising great things in what I'm doing, just day-to-day drafting motions, pleadings, research, proofreading, making sure it's he and not she when you're when you're drafting. I've also been happy with putting in a lot of different data and having it prepare a summary or, present it in a more organized format than just, I mean, it's something that anybody really could do. The AI can do it faster and, maybe a little bit better written.
Sure. Brushing up your grammar and
Pretty much.
verbiage, right?
And you can set it for a tone, things like that also. And again, even if you use it, you want to say, all right, where did you get that? Tell me. I'm not taking your word for it. Please provide your source, your citation. And it'll be honest. I just assumed that that was the case, but here's what I based that assumption on. So it's not really a law, not really a case law. I guess I'm dipping my toe into it, still not ready to risk everything on it. And it's coming along. I mean, the salesman always promise more, and I'm sure that in your profession, there's probably the same thing going on that you could feed it in just like a regular human nurse. So get you the same results, 62% of the time or something like that. So it'll be an interesting world. So what do you see as a new, again, maybe adding to your business? I mean, are electric cars, for example, creating a whole new set of hazards or
Well, I don't know. I'm a control freak. So wherever I can keep my locus of control
uh,
under myself and independent is where I'm going to be at.
right. I mean, they're talking, I mean, I guess the plan is we're all going to be battery powered. Those batteries are hazardous waste, when you get rid of them. Where are you going to get rid of 5, 10 million automobiles and all of that? And then every time they catch on fire, all of that goes up in the air.
It reminds me of some pharmaceuticals. You're taking the pill to solve one problem, but are you creating five more?
Right,
Is the
right.
real question in the efficacy.
And then you have another pill for that, and two pills interact. If I can ask you, how much do you charge for your services, or do you charge in a tiered fashion, or how does that work?
It depends. Consulting is a lower fee, and then of course, expert witness is going to be a
Right.
higher fee for that. Typically, experts have a fee schedule which dictates travel reimbursements,
Mhm.
minimum. So I have a 4 hour minimum for a deposition and an 8 hour minimum for trial. Typically, it takes around that amount of time anyway. But again, I guess
Right.
that translates into my operations, right? Being proactive rather than reactive, having it all hashed out ahead.
I've seen it sort of, again, in the family law, it's a third, a third, and a third. So a third so you can designate them as an expert, maybe a third to study up on the case in depth and then prepare a report, and then a third to actually testify and if they have to testify. So, and again, this median of doing depositions called de bene essa, doing depositions before the trial, but and of course from your office and the lawyers in this office and the insurance companies in that office, and then the court reporter is someplace else. So in their office. So again, it's a wonderful time saver, and again, frees up everyone to do their real work, rather than looking for a parking space and fighting traffic on the way home.
That's
So that's
right.
a hopefully increased efficiency and not just increased laziness. So are there other areas that you see? I mean, like this number of people that are going to be retiring, is that going to lead to litigation on against nursing homes or something like that? It's going to expand into that area.
Our population, our baby boomer large population is getting older, and that's certainly contributing to some of the crises here that we're seeing in healthcare with overall volume. And
Mhm.
people are living longer, but
Right.
they're living more complexly with more comorbidities and diseases that need to be managed.
Hmm.
So, navigating that landscape is very difficult, and healthcare is evolving and rising to the occasion, but all of that is sheer volume. So I think that healthcare really needs to focus on what they're doing to make the jobs for the doctors and the nurses and the staff within the health systems happier, feel
Right.
safer. There's a lot of violence against healthcare workers. There was just an active shooter in one hospital. Another nurse
Hmm.
just got beaten so severely, all of the bones in her face were broken. In order to retain good staff that's knowledgeable and has seniority, I think some of those things are really going to have to be fixed.
Yeah, yeah. And then like as people get older, they're kind of pushed over into retirement homes and like, well, this one they'll do 5 items of daily living, and then if they get dementia, we have a dementia home, and then we have a traditional nursing home. Who oversees those people? Hospital is traditional, very regimented, very, very many procedures and guidelines to follow, but as you put them all out into a suburban single family houses, but then they all have major medical issues. How often do you visit them in the house, their apartment? What if they don't show up for 3 days for dinner? Who checks on them? Do you have enough people to check on them?
Right. And I see a lot of cases in those arenas where maybe these patients or residents were appropriate for that level of care. At one point, the operations of reassessing and identifying when there's an acute change and they're no longer
Uh,
appropriate for that area, yet they stay there and then there's a negative outcome. I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Opportunity for improvement. Again, that's not my field of practice. Mine's more but I mean, I do have had cases where the children are disabled when the child support is obviously payable for regular children from 0 to 18, maybe 19 if they're students. But then if they're disabled, then that care could go on for the rest of their lives, and obligation to pay child support is there for the rest of their lives. And so a lot of times you're in an argument of, I mean, I haven't done it that much. Are the children really disabled? And be surprised about how many times the payor will dispute that, or the lawyer says, well, we're admitting to nothing. You'll have to prove that. So that's a situation that comes up infrequently, thankfully. But whether the child has to go to a special school, which requires huge tuition, that kind of thing. So that the arena that you might provide services in, and evaluating the children's medical needs.
That is actually outside of my
Oh,
expertise. But whenever that comes around, I have a very large network of colleagues that we're all very tight with,
oh,
and
okay.
we basically have one of everything.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah.
so I can always refer if you're in need for
Okay.
something like that.
Okay, good, good. What do you see happening in the future? Just more of the same, the regular car accidents and medical malpractice, neglect, or is there some new form of, I mean, like all these high-tech machines, what are they conveying? What information are they conveying? And then, all right, so this person is supposed to evaluate it. Did they? I mean, is what they thought they saw accurate? Does the machine have a gap or a fatal flaw? Is the interpreter actually, the radiologist actually seeing that? In fact, that's a field where they're pretending that AI can do even better than a human. So do you see anything like that coming, and the malpractice from that?
I have yet to see a root cause analysis done by an AI yet,
Mhm.
but I know that there can be some humans that do great root cause analysis, and I know that there's some that maybe AI can beat out. But I would love to see some statistics on a side-by-side comparison on that.
Right, right. And I think what you see is mostly the sales pitches that we're just as good or whatever. Like again, like what I'm getting in the legal field, there's no need to write motions anymore because the AI can do it for $200 a month or whatever. So, and I guess as long as people are driving, as long as people are up and moving around, maybe different kinds of injuries, but it's still going to be whether the skateboards replace the roller skates or something like that. But and then what are you going to branch out into anything? Is there an area you want to expand into?
So right now I do consulting, expert witnessing, and I also do expert witness location. So if a
Oh,
case
okay.
comes to me and I look at it, or the attorney's telling me the scenario, even like just our conversation, hey, do you do kids in group homes that are disabled? No, that's not my expertise, but I can
Right.
get someone for you, sort of thing. And that's pretty much it. I'm really happy with where my practice is at right now. I've been doing
Mhm.
it about 4 years. And I recently moved to South Carolina from New York after
Oh,
40 years,
wow.
few years. So I'm just looking to build up in my local community and have more of a presence in my new hometown. But other than
Hmm.
that, we're right on target over here at Clancy Consulting.
Very, very good, very good. Are you what part of South Carolina? Towards the coast or?
Yeah, we're at the beach, Coley's
Oh,
Island.
okay. Well, very good. So you're going surfing? Oh, time to.
I boogie board. Surfing's too much for me, but
Oh, okay.
yeah, at the beach all the time.
Right, right. Oh, that's great. That's great. Yep, I kind of grew up going to the beach, and my parents had a place at the beach and a place in the mountains, so we could go back and forth like that. But yeah, it's nice. Get there when when the tourists are not there, that's when it's really nice. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, September through like November is the prime time.
or even, January. There's utterly no one there. Nice.
Yeah.
So as long as you bundle up sufficiently. So yeah, well, that's good. So you got a good steady business, and depending on the human touch, I guess, continuously going forward. And hopefully, helping people. Again, like I said, the what's going to happen with the new machines, the new interpretations of the data, how that's going to move it ahead. Was the technician trained sufficiently, to operate it? That kind of thing. Did the nurse's station really malfunction and not relay in the alarm that the patient's heart had stopped? That the nurse says, "Yeah, I've been sitting here the whole time and nothing happened." So that's a scary prospect too. But okay, so do you work exclusively for lawyers? Would you work if someone had an outside case and brought it to you as a civilian, or?
Typically, I don't want to get caught in the minutia of being possibly claimed that I'm practicing law. So
Right.
if a civilian comes to me, then I just direct them to one of my attorneys that I have worked with or has a good reputation, and I
Uh-huh.
let them take it from there, and then I take on the
Okay. Okay, good, good. I mean, I've had to do the same thing, and clients come because I'm the lawyer, and of course I don't do this area of practice, but then you want to point the person in the right direction. A lot of times they're terrible cases, and you need to find out who can do what. So are you practicing in any state or just particular states, or how does that? Where
So
does?
I'm nursing licensed in New York and South Carolina, and in under 4 years, I've already assisted attorneys in over 20 states.
Okay, all right, okay. So your reports or I guess, your reports are not limited to that particular state or that particular area.
Right.
That's good to know.
Every state has different requirements. Some states require you to be clinically active during the time of lawsuit or when the claimed alleged actions occurred, but you could practice behind the scenes in any
All right.
state, no matter what, and then the expert criteria comes down to that law there.
So once you do the review, you tell the lawyer yes or no, it's a good case, it's not a good case, and here's the breakdown, and then would you assist like in putting in the claim to the insurance company or selecting I think you said you'd help on selecting expert witnesses, and as the case progresses, you'd still be involved.
Yes, it depends which side of the consulting or the expert side
Right.
I'm on. Consulting leaves me more freely, gets behind the scenes, and I can kind of help the attorney create interrogatories for other depositions or put
Mhm.
together some
Mhm.
trial exhibitions,
Wow.
evidence, things like that, collecting other experts and helping them manage. But when I'm an expert, I'm just kind of in my own silo
Right,
bubble.
right. And you'd want to stay that way so that you can't be attacked as being going off the out of focus, I guess would be the word. So,
Right.
all right, well, very good. Yeah, as you could probably tell, I've asked you a lot of questions on my own personal experience. So, what I've seen, and again, even as a family law lawyer, you see, things around the edge. The mother-in-law comes to visit, and then never leaves. And then that leads to conflict and, why is but then what happens if the family breaks up? What are you going to do with the mother? What are you going to do with the mother-in-law? Obviously, no obligation there, but how do you tell that to the clients? So that's difficult situations that come up. Well, then you can always work them as the free babysitters. So
Right.
you know,
Right.
they don't have to pay they don't have to pay daycare. So that works out really well too. So, all right, well, very good. I do appreciate your time and thank you very much. And again, thank you for listening to my podcast, Randall Borden, and signing out.